It's more than 2 decades since the AIDS virus was first identified as a disease that meant almost certain death. In the past decade, a new generation of drugs has meant most HIV sufferers can now expect to live on into old age. But while up to 30,000 Australians with HIV will ultimately be kept alive with treatment, these same drugs also cause horrific side effects that can leave patients with bodies and faces so gaunt and disfigured, most are forced to withdraw from society. This week, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee will decide whether a product called Sculptra, normally used by cosmetic surgeons to beautify their patients, should be made freely available to HIV sufferers to help restore their facial appearance and give them a chance to live a normal life again. Deborah Cornwall reports.
Some patients are so conscious about their look that they have all the mirrors in their house covered because they just couldn't bear to see themselves.
Depending on how severe the facial wasting is, it can look quite scary. You know, it can be like a skeleton on legs, basically.
Robert Pearson is a rare survivor of the AIDS Holocaust, when back in the 80s, testing positive meant almost certain death.
But now we know every one of us could be devastated by it.
The disease cut short his dancing career, but he was alive.
I was lucky enough to stay quite well for a number of years until in 1993 my health started to deteriorate, and basically I came home to die.
Robert Pearson was saved again, this time by the new generation of antiretroviral drugs that came onto the market in the mid-90s. But while these drugs now take HIV patients into old age, for at least half of them, it also comes at a terrible price, with severely disfiguring side effects like body and facial wasting.
I became a recluse because basically it was the death of my face. With the face caving in, because people stared a lot when you had this, and although they didn't come up and say anything in particular, it's like little kids, you know, whispering behind their hands.
It's almost as though they're walking around with a cardboard with the label HIV positive.
You've got a little bit of flattening in what we
Dr. Stephen Liu is one of the country's leading plastic surgeons. His practice in inner Sydney's Darlinghurst attracts a who's who of the rich and famous.
Okay, Robert. How are you?
But it's also in the heart of the country's gay capital. And he was among the first who began treating HIV patients for the cruel side effects from their treatments.
Essentially, they wake up one day, look in the mirror and said, "Who is this guy I'm staring at?" In the most severe case, when I see the patient, it's almost as though I'm talking to a skeleton with just a thin layer of skin covering the skeleton, not much else in between.
Almost bought land, yeah. Was signing the dotted line.
Health worker Mark Fawcett says he was so desperate to stop the changes to his face, at first he'd tried overeating.
Fatty foods, I'd eat whatever I like, but the fat was going on my stomach and other places where it was uncomfortable. So the physical appearance of the face didn't change, it just got worse.
By the time he sought treatment with Dr. Liu 5 years ago, he was having difficulty leaving his house at all and was just weeks away from quitting work altogether.
Well, the photos speak for themselves, and I could notice the changes from when I was prior to diagnosis and starting treatment, and then at a period of, say, 2 years afterwards. And it was terrifying, and it was depressing, and it was hard to take.
At the time, a new product called Sculptra, which stimulated collagen growth, had just come onto the market.
Fillers such as Sculptra are used to treat loss of volume in the face and cheek area.
Aimed squarely at the beauty industry to plump up ageing faces, it also delivered spectacular results for HIV patients, restoring their faces and their confidence.
If I hadn't have been referred to Stephen and had the treatment, then I probably wouldn't be in the workforce today. I'd probably be on the pension and being a burden to society rather than a part of it.
I am still today, having done this for the last 7 years, amazed with the degree of transformation most of these patients get even after a few treatments.
For most HIV patients who live on a pension, the cost of Sculptra injections are well beyond them, at $8,000 to $10,000 for initial treatments and $2,000 to $3,000 for top-ups every 2 years.
Must be one of my backside.
You know there's a new product we can use for your
Is
backside?
there? Is there? Yeah. The only thing is going up is full of product.
It's called butt lift.
Butt lift.
Robert Pearson is one of the lucky few who've been treated at no cost, part of a trial run by Dr. Liu and a group of physicians last year, with funding from drug manufacturers and the makers of Sculptra, Sanofi Aventis.
Here, it feels all nice and smooth. So I'm just going to show you in the mirror.
Okay. Wow. It's amazing what a difference it makes. And one. And two.
Robert Pearson's friends say since the treatment, he's been a new man.
Well, it's giving me the old Robert back, I think, and to have to stop that would be devastating now that I've got a taste of what it's like to be normal again. I don't know whether I'll be able to cope with the fact that there's a chance I could go back to looking like I was before.
Sculptra treatments have been freely available to HIV patients in the United Kingdom and France for the past 4 years. This week, the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee will deliver its recommendation on whether Australia should follow their lead. Up to 10,000 Australians living with HIV are counting on it.
I personally felt it's critical. I see this as part of the extension of HIV treatment because it is a complication as a result of HIV treatment. I'll give you this quote from my patient. It's almost like giving them a second chance of life.
Deborah Cornwall with that report. For more on any of our stories, just go